have you seen Star Wars?
Man, this Kenobi series really confuses me in its quality of storytelling and writing. I really enjoy the first episode, I dislike the second one, and now we're reviewing episode 3, and by the way, yes, I know episode 4 is out, I'm late, but we'll get to that mess later. I liked episode 3, and I want to talk about it in today's video, but before we do, please leave a like on the video and help me defeat the dark side that is a YouTube algorithm by leaving a like. So, this episode starts off with intensity. Both Vader and Kenobi are preparing pretty much for each other. Obi-Wan has to acknowledge and come to grips that Anakin survived and Anakin is alive, and now Anakin is Darth Vader, and in this episode, Vader is using Reva to find his old Jedi Master and promise her the role of Grand Inquisitor if she succeeds. Despite not being a fan of Reva in the first 2 episodes, I will say I enjoyed her interacting with the other 2 Inquisitors in this episode. Seeing the 5th brother show his strength over Reva, and then they act like children about who gets to stand by Vader, who is daddy to all these fucking kids. It's pretty funny, and I like this aspect and this dynamic between the Inquisitors. It's simple, but it does give you something to look forward to with these specific characters, and their roles as villains is kind of unique in the series. But most of this episode takes place on a mining planet called California. Or whatever. This might be Nevada as well. This really doesn't look like a Star Wars planet, but still, it's the Star Wars translation of a Star Wars planet, which is completely fine. Aside from the basic setting, I actually liked a lot of the scenes out here. It feels like a normal and basic Star Wars adventure, seeing Obi-Wan and Leia wander around this planet looking for the help that Kenobi thinks will never come. In fact, he thinks it's not going to come so much, he literally leaves the place that they were supposed to meet. And I kind of like that. I like that they add that sense of doubt to Kenobi. I feel like if you were watching this during the Clone Wars, he'd be fine waiting around for a little bit, but he's been out of the game for a while, he's kind of upset about things, he's not the same person anymore, he's very irritable now. It makes sense that he would just give up that quickly. And it also adds some realism to the series when they're picked up by a stranger who offers to take them across the planet. And this adds a lot of tension to this episode in small ways of just seeing the stormtrooper sit across from Kenobi and watch him try to talk his way out of looking suspicious, which he of course clearly does. Scenes like this in the show really add something for me. It makes it feel like you're almost watching a Star Wars movie, which I know this was originally planned as, but this is what I would expect in certain Star Wars movies. And you even have the scenes right before this that are quite impactful of Kenobi traumatized by the knowledge that Anakin is alive and seeing Anakin and hallucinating him pretty much. And even Leia, the way he looks at Leia and he sees her mother Padme, he wishes that he was the father of Leia, since it would be a much easier explanation than her father being the Dark Lord of the Sith who killed countless people. But thankfully the episode doesn't really stick with this slow pace of just reminiscing and kind of hiding. Obi-Wan gets help from a rebel spy who disguises herself as an Imperial officer, and she also helps Jedi escape the Empire in an Underground Railroad type of program. I believe they call it the Path. I'm not sure if it's the program or if that's the Underground Railroad thing, but anyways, it's called the Path. And we even get a unique shout out to good old Quinlan Vos, which did bring a good smile to my face. I think a lot of people like that little call out, but anyways, we then get to the highlight of the episode, which is Vader arriving on this planet, and Kenobi immediately senses Vader's presence. Pretty much, I'm not even sure if it's when he lands. I think he looks up at the ship and sees a ship landing, and he's like, I'm pretty confident Anakin's on that. And Vader walks through this town and brutally kills people and their families in front of him. He dragged a dad out of a window, killed him, and then snapped the son's neck all in front of the mom. That is dark, okay? I didn't even believe that they were gonna really do something this dark. I didn't believe the marketing team was being genuine when they said this is going to be a darker show, and that's good. And this scene was very dark, and I'm not going to say it's very Star Wars, but it's very Vader-esque. We need to be reminded that this is not the same innocent 9-year-old from Tatooine. This is an evil and dark man who's only here to seek revenge on his former master, and he is pissed. Eventually, Kenobi comes face to face with Vader, and I love the lighting in these scenes. Some have said that this sequence kind of looks like a fan film, but I really don't mind it too much. We see the fear in Kenobi trying to not only run from Vader, but quite literally run from his past failures as a Jedi. Kenobi is terrified of what Anakin is now, and nothing speaks volume to that than when he's like, what are you? And look what you have become, or whatever. And Vader simply says, I am what you made me. Oh my god, that was a very powerful scene of dialogue, and I thought that made the episode. They have a small but impactful duel, and it kind of ends with Vader lifting Kenobi with the Force. And this is where I start thinking, okay, some of this stuff looks a little corny. The shots of him lifting Kenobi is, alright, whatever. And then he drags him through the fire. I mean, God. He drags him through literal fire. I mean, that is a dark act by the Sith Lord. And this episode, I feel like, really follows the first episode of the series very well. It sticks to the main points of the plot, which is Kenobi, being traumatized by the survival of Anakin, by his past, and the failures of that, and literally having to confront his past. And the subplot of this episode wasn't too bad either, with Reva trying to develop, I guess, an arc in a way without really being overwhelming in the story like it did with the second episode, where she not steals the show but almost hijacks it from it being about Kenobi. I think it's just because the second episode was so basic in what it was. I don't really enjoy how Reva just magically appears in front of Leia from the tunnel system. I don't doubt that she could catch up to a 10-year-old or anything, but it kind of causes a suspension of belief for me in the story. Reva shows up at the end of the tunnel and is figuring out, oh, like, this is where they're escaping, and then she magically appears where the pilot, who she never knew existed, is in front of Leia. Like, that stuff to me is like, okay, but anyways, Reva shows up at the end because the plot needed her to, not because it seemed like she realistically could do so, but that's really only a small complaint that has no reflection on her character at all, despite me not really liking her character at all, if that makes sense. But overall, I enjoyed this episode. I really liked this episode of Kenobi a lot. This is what I was hoping for from the Kenobi series in general. To me, this is what episode 2 should have been. To me, this is episode 2. The part 2, the original episode 2, I don't even think about. That's not memorable to me at all. I don't like that episode remotely. And to me, this captures what I was expecting from the series in terms of its focus on Obi-Wan and his past relationship with Vader and his reflections on the past. This is what Kenobi should be going forward. But with part 4, I know that's not true. I'm sorry I haven't reviewed that episode yet. I will review it by the time I think episode 5 comes out, if not the same day. But in terms of what we're going to give part 3, out of a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give it an 8.5. I think this is a very solid episode. I think this has a lot of rewatchability. And I think this is, if you were going to make a Kenobi movie, a lot of scenes from this would have been what I would put in. And when I say make a Kenobi movie, I mean you only put in, I guess, from the series as a whole, what is essential to the story. Part 3 and Part 1 are essential to the story. Part 2, and we'll talk about Part 4 later, but Part 2 is not essential to the story. But tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. What did you think of Episode 3 of Kenobi, and what would you rank it? I'll give you my Part 4 later this week, and Part 5 is releasing this Wednesday. Make sure to leave a like on today's video, and subscribe to the channel for more Star Wars content. Follow me on Instagram and social media, and check out the Chatooine show. We air those on Wednesday nights. We're going to do a show of Chatooine on the Star Wars Only channel this Wednesday as well, so be sure to check that out. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you all next time, and may the Force be with you always.